Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be painting up the Lord Exultant from the Emperor's Children box set. So these are all the paints that I'm going to be using, and because he has so many options, he's about three different weapons per arm. We're going to be magnetizing the model. Now normally I don't really showcase the building process because joyful painting, that's the name of the channel, not building. But this is such a key part of going forward that I might as well show it, and because it's pretty unique. So I'll be using the Army Painter drill heads because they have the right sizes. Luckily his forearms are large enough, and so essentially what I do is first I will take a sharp pointy knife and then I will score the first hole or make the indent of where it is. Then I will start applying the drill in there. Essentially, so his forearms will have a hole in it drilled. It's just barely able to make it, so you have to be very careful. I do this very slowly over time, and then I apply a same hole into each of the wrists or the power fist. Now many of his weapons is just a hand attached to the weapon, so what I actually do is I just glue the magnet right there on it, and so you can, it actually looks like a part of his wrist now when it's fully painted. But essentially the magnet is there, it's now a part of it, it'll be painted alongside, and it'll just be like his wrists are just a little bit longer. I primed the model with black car primer, matte black, and a quick note is that the model is barely assembled. Basically every part is separate, even the head. Yeah, pretty much because of how everything's in the way. The backpack is technically two parts, but that's put together. And then once that's all done, I do a base coat of Nagaroth Night over everything. Alright, time for something new. With Cabalite Green, Sybarite Green, Pallid Witchflesh, and Nagaroth Night, we're going to paint the cape he has. He has a back part and a front part. And so I'm really going into the unknown, so I'm not fully sure what to do. So here's a quick overview of what I did do. First, Cabalite Green all over. Then, a wash of Nagaroth Night. This was a mistake. I'll tell you how I should have done it after the fact. But basically, Cabalite Green base, Nagaroth Night wash until it was darkened enough. Then I went back and re-highlighted 90-95% of everything with Cabalite Green. Then I went to Sybarite Green. Now here's the thing. I want, one of the key things I want in my Emperor's Children is smooth. So we're not going to do the textured stuff that I normally do. So what I do is I apply, well, basically a highlight of Sybarite Green covering like 70-75% of everything I just did. But what I did do was I went back and then turned Sybarite Green into a glaze and then put it over to make sure I could get rid of the brush strokes. And eventually I turned it into a wash in some places and just put a little bit here to get rid of the brush strokes. The correct way I should have done this was do Sybarite Green as a paint on the most raised edges and stuff, then turn it into a glaze and then apply it in a few layers in places to help the color transition and to keep it smooth. And then at the very end I took Pallid Witchflesh and a little bit of Sybarite Green as the final highlight and placed it on the most raised areas and edges. This was a process of going back and forth. Sometimes I had to go back to Cabalite Green because I might have gone too over. And yeah, basically it was mostly Sybarite Green starting as a paint, then a glaze, then a wash in some places to get that super smooth. Because I'm not familiar with these colors. They have a nuance to it, like how much water you can add, how translucent they are, stuff like that. And so what I should have done, which I will do later, is the first layer, well, obviously is Nagaroth Night, but a 1-to-1 mix of Cabalite Green and Nagaroth Night, then pure Cabalite Green, then paint layer of Sybarite Green on the raised areas, and then do glazes and stuff. Alright, with Corvus Black, Eshin Gray, Dawnstone, and Administrative Gray, we're going to paint the black armor. So I don't like pure black armor because it just doesn't... It looks dull. It's hard to work with. It's just flat colors. So basically what I'm going to do is... I'm going to do dark gray, essentially, instead of black. So basically Corvus Black all over. Then I'm going to take Eshin Gray and apply it onto... How do I put this? The upper 2/3, because it's cylinder, because his body is basically cylinders and stuff. Essentially, we're covering 2/3 of what we did, like towards the light and stuff. I don't know if that makes sense. Then with Dawnstone, we're going to do the same thing, watered down so that we can apply some glazes and make it some better transitional colors. Then at the very end, the most raised areas or bolts or stuff like that, we're going to do some thin lines of Administrative Gray. And yeah, that's the start for right now. I wanted to try a new color. Instead of Nagaroth Night, I took this contrast paint Shyish Purple, watered it down with a little bit of Lamy and Medium to make it flow better, and I applied it on all the gray that I just painted to sort of tie the colors together, tone them down a little bit for the most bright ones and stuff. But in the end, I probably should have just used Nagaroth Night. Yeah. Alright, with Xerxes Purple, Gene Sealer Purple, and I'm not going to bother pronouncing that, we're going to paint the armor. Now, fun fact, I actually picked up a purple paint specifically for this, but forgot where I put it, and did not completely forgot about it. I only found it after the fact. So essentially, smooth is the goal, but their round edges and curvature of Space Marine armor, even for Chaos, is always something I've always had trouble getting. But I wanted to have smooth. So here's basically what I'm going to do. Xerxes Purple as the base. Well, Nagaroth Night is the true base, but Xerxes Purple. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to do with hard lines. First Xerxes Purple, then I'm going to do Gene Sealer Purple on sort of like what I could consider the halfway up point. And then sort of the bright lilac color on the most raised areas. And then what I do is I go back and I do mixes of 1-to-1 Xerxes Purple, Gene Sealer Purple, and Gene Sealer Purple and the lilac color, and put it in the in-betweens and try to create blends. And essentially what I do is I keep doing mixes, usually 1-to-1, but sometimes if the color is too much of a hard transition, I then mix a little more or less of the color. So what I'm actually doing here is nothing really concrete. Basically, dark color underneath, medium color towards the light, and the lightest color on the tips. And then I create blends of the colors to put on the in-betweens to help the colors flow. And in some places it's better than others. This is me desperately trying to make this work, but basically there was no real steps. This is me just constantly blending in colors. So basically, bottom area Xerxes Purple, mid area Gene Sealer Purple, top the lilac color, and then I created blends of the colors and the in-between to paint in between the lines. This hard lines of the colors. If any of that makes sense, good luck. If not, watch. If none of this makes sense, sorry. But that's essentially what I was able to do, and I was able to get it to work pretty well, but it took a very long time to do this, longer than I would like for this kind of armor, and there's a whole army of dudes like this. I chose purple also because this is a character model, and I want him to have some reference to the legions. The regular scrub guys are going to have what's on the box art. Alright, with Nagaroth Knight, Cablite Green, Cybrite Green, and Powdered Witch Flesh, I'm going to do what I was supposed to do with the capes, or the better way, on his hair tassel thing. So basically, I did 1-to-1 of Nagaroth Knight and Cablite Green, which created this interesting blue, used as a base layer, then went straight to Cablite Green, and I painted thin stripes on most of the areas, on the parts of the tassel that was, I don't know how, the ropes basically. Some of the flat parts are just flat Cablite Green. Then I redid the same thing with Cybrite Green on the more raised ropes and stuff, however you describe it. And I didn't get the footage of it because I did it so quickly I forgot to get footage, but basically Cybrite Green with a little bit of Powdered Witch Flesh. I did it on the most raised ropes of his tassel, the top of his tassel and stuff, to create the highlights. And yeah, this was the right way to do it. With Catachan Flesh, Gorthor Brown, Nightquester Flesh, and Nagaroth Knight as our eternal base color that could show up anywhere, we're going to paint the gun strap he has, or the gun holster, yes. So Catachan Flesh, base color all over. 1-to-1 with Catachan and Gorthor Brown, focusing on the more raised areas, some of the flat planes. We're going to do like a cross, or like a line across the middle flat area. So on the edges and stuff like that. Then we're going to do pure Gorthor Brown, doing the, basically filling in what we just filled in before. And with Nightquester Flesh, we're going to put on the very edges and thin strips and lines across what we've done before with Gorthor Brown. And then once that's all done, we're then going to take a thin wash of Nagaroth Knight, apply it all over once or twice, depending on how thin it is, but we want it thinner because more control. If it's not enough, we can apply a second coat. If it's too much, we're screwed. And then once that's done, I just re-highlight all what I did before with Nightquester Flesh. And it looks pretty good. Nice colors, nice leather. And then with the exact same colors, we're painting his whip. So interestingly, I'm going to paint the same colors because I'm like thinking like, okay, maybe it's a flesh whip out of the same, or leather whip made out of the same type of flesh. So basically, a few notes. So the paints are not washes, they're paints, but they're a little bit dry. There's very little water in them. And whoever designed this at GW, this whip, thank you, because the indents on this are actually quite deep, and you can basically overbrush this easily if you have a good brush and your paint is well mixed. So basically Catachan Flesh all over, and then overbrush Gorthor Brown, which is similar to dry brush but not fully dry, and it just perfectly catches on everything. If you're just careful, it works. And then Nightquester Flesh on the more raised half towards the light kind of part of the whip, then Nagaroth Knight wash all over to add depth and shadow, and then re-highlight with Nightquester Flesh on the more raised areas, and that's it. Alright, with Cadian Flesh Tone, Bugman's Glow, we're going to paint the skin that's on his right leg. So the way I show it is I do show Bugman's Glow base and then Cadian Flesh Tone sort of as a glaze. Canadian flesh tone does not do a glaze very well, just the way it works, sadly. So essentially what I had to do, I basically, I can't really show it because there was a lot of back and forth, but basically the final step is I kept doing different mixes of Canadian flesh tone and Bugman's Glow to add to a transitional color. So I probably did around 3 or 4. I just was just going back and forth. So this was very artsy. This stuff is difficult to do with this rounded edges and stuff. But basically what I did is Bugman's Glow base, Canadian flesh tone on the most raised areas, and then I created mixes of the paint in between to help work on the transitional colors. It took a little bit. Alright, now that all the non-metallics are essentially done, we're going to take AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish and Anti-Shine Matte Varnish from the Army Painter. So what we're going to do is, on the capes, we're going to apply pure, well not pure, just a little bit watered down Anti-Shine Matte Varnish to help it flow better. Essentially, I want the capes and stuff to shine. We're talking like silk. It's like, I think it would fit. And then, with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, watered down a little bit, just a little, we apply it on all the flesh. So his right leg that has the skin, his leather gun holster on his back, and his whip will have this. The rest are going to have a one-ish mix of AK Interactive and basically both of them mixed together, Anti-Shine and AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, mixed together sort of one-to-one-ish with a little bit of water to help it flow better, and applied all over. This is like a semi-matte, a semi-gloss thing, and it kind of looks like paint, the effect of paintbrushes. So it's a little translucent, or no, it's a little shiny, but it's not that shiny, and it works well. Alright, with Lead Belcha, Fulgurite Copper, and Sycorax Bronze, we're going to start with the base layers of the metal. So Lead Belcha will go on all the, basically silver. This is going to be the silver stuff, the first base layer, all over. Yeah, all the filigree along the edges of the metals and stuff like that. Then with Fulgurite Copper, we're going to place this on the base layer of all the brass. So he has chains on his front cape, chains on his back cape, his guns and stuff, the guard handles for a lot of his weapons. And then Sycorax Bronze, which is one of the most irritating paints to paint with. Unless you use this, you're not going to believe this, but this is like a gel. It's not like a paint. It's like a gel, even if you water it down. So in order for it to work as a paint, you have to water it down just enough, but if you add a little bit too much water, it completely breaks apart and turns into a wash. I don't know what they did to make this, but this is such an irritating paint to work with. It's like, and you don't brush it on, you scrub it on so it adheres. Yeah. But Sycorax Bronze is basically the highlight to all the Fulgurite Copper and stuff, the most raised areas. We're basically overbrushing or dry brushing onto areas and stuff, flat planes and things like that. Basically, we're covering around half of what we did with Fulgurite Copper with Sycorax Bronze, if that makes any sense. Now with Naggaroth Knight, and I just realized I didn't take a picture of him, but Sycorax Brogs and Duraluminum from Vallejo, which is a bright silver. I don't know how I messed this up. Basically, Naggaroth Knight wash all over the metals. 1 to 2 coats, probably 1 would have been enough. I'm trying this a more traditional way, applying it all over to add depth of shadow, add to the bolts and all the stuff, and add color. Hit or miss on the gold and stuff. It works great. It looks great. Adds an extra depth to the gold-ish brass kind of stuff. Then I go back with Sycorax Bronze and re-highlight a lot of the areas. It works so-so. Then I take the Duraluminum Silver and I apply it onto the silver metal-y parts, the more raised areas and such. But this was a very slow, demanding process, and I wanted to try the more traditional way because literally the colors I'm not familiar with and the nuance. Like, I paint a lot of red capes because I'm very familiar with it and I know how the paints work. With these colors, it's a little different, but I actually, on another model I painted that you haven't seen yet, probably not going to see for a while, I found the best way to paint this stupid filigree stuff, and then I didn't do it for this model. So I actually did it the worst way possible. But yeah, so I basically had to do some back and forth and fix some things. But the brass, the golden stuff with this purple looks great. Alright, trying something. So Duraluminum, which is a bright silver, and contrast paint Sigvold Burgundy. So basically what I do is I add a little bit of the Sigvold Burgundy into the Duraluminum, and basically I paint it on. It turns the silver into a certain color, and I apply it onto their blades. And basically I do this back and forth of adding more silver, more burgundy, and I try to basically do layers and stuff and make the... Because their weapons have like this, some of them have this pink purplish thing on them, like to their metal. And this was a more easier way of doing it, but it took a lot of effort, and it kind of worked, but the overall end result is so lower than the rest of the model, so it's not that good. And then we get into final assembly, and the base was done separately, but I didn't show it because I'm not fully sure of how I wanted. I wanted marble, but it didn't turn out too well. Doggone it. Yeah, and that's about it. Dang, yeah. So this was an interesting model to make or paint because I had no idea what I was doing through so much. Some things turned out great. Some things turned out okay. Some things I could not get it right. I got no ideas. The base is not that good. I tried to make it shiny, but it didn't seem to work because I don't have access to certain materials I've done before. Even though I've done bases like this similarly, I don't have access to some of the materials, so the quality was lower. Yeah, so focusing on what's good. The green capes and his green tassel, phenomenal, excellent, 10 out of 10. Refine the method, I'll be able to go forward doing these colors wonderfully. Second thing that came out great, like 9 out of 10. The purple armor, really good, 8 to 9 out of 10. The transitional colors could use a little bit more work, but that's the thing, they took a lot of work, and this is a character. I did it in the Legion colors because he's a character, but this was a bit, this was pretty difficult to do. His skin, on his leg, a lot of back and forth. It worked pretty well. I didn't describe it well enough. I added a layer of Naggaroth Knight wash to because he has metal bolts on it that added to it. One of the things that didn't work. His gun holsters and the leather, that came out great. So some of the things that didn't work. Oh, and the brass. The brass came out great. The Slanesh symbol on his back, great. I love the purple tint to all his golden brass. So here's the things that didn't work. So choosing colors. So I wanted. So the box art has some a certain way, but he also so there's an artistic depiction of him, and then there's the box art version. I prefer to go with the artistic depictions for a bit more for characters or stuff like that, because they have more character, they have more interesting personality. So I tried to follow some of the artistic stuff, but when I made choices on some parts, so what's really getting me is that the Emperor's Children, they have mismatched armor. They have black and pink, but it's all random. one guy, his arm will be black, one guy, his arm will be pink, or half of his arm will be one color and the other half won't. And so it's it's a difficult choice. And so when I made a choice on his head is black essentially when it should have been pink or purple in this case, because for some reason the black next to the silver, the way his head is, they seem to like blend together. I didn't realize this until the end. His head should be pink or purple around the silver, or even his face even shouldn't be silver, it should be something else, the silver filigree. So that was a wrong color choice. His metal, so his metal blades, the spear and the sword, didn't turn out great, but his guns turned out great. His plasma pistol did not turn out great at all. It looks terrible. But I couldn't figure out how to do it because I actually almost never paint Space Marines. I was like, there's some things I'm good at, some things I'm clearly not good at because I can't envision it. The whip came out great though. So I'm going to give overall, this is a 7 out of 10 because there were some things that are great, but there are also some things that really hold him back. On the tabletop, his green cape really elevates him. He looks great. But man, I just don't know. This was a lot of exploration. I genuinely don't know what to think. He's probably going to be one of the ugliest character models in my army going forward, but he was a necessary experiment and test. And moving forward, hopefully I'll be able to get things doing better. Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Alright, so like the video if you like the video, share if you want to share it, comment if you want to comment, and more to come.